The morning after the gala was chaos. Newspapers, blogs, and social media buzzed with photos of Alina standing tall in her midnight blue gown. The damning picture of Richard and Veronica flashing across every screen. Headlines screamed scandal. Sterling empire shaken. Wife exposes husband's mistress at gala. And from power to betrayals, Sterling. Family drama unfolds live. For Richard, it was a nightmare. Investors were calling non-stop, some demanding explanations, others considering pulling out of the merger. His publicist advised him to issue a carefully worded statement, but Richard refused to admit fault. "I will not let her ruin me," he snarled, pacing his office. "This will blow over. She regret humiliating me like that." Veronica sat in the corner, scrolling through the brutal comments online. Once adored as Richard's glamorous mystery date, she was now labeled a homewrecker. The ridicule stung. "Richard, this is bad. They're tearing me apart out there. You need to do something." "Don't worry," he snapped, though worry not at him. "I'll handle Alina. She thinks she won last night, but she has no idea who she's up against." Meanwhile, across town, Alina sat at her kitchen table, sipping coffee while her best friend Julia scrolled through her phone. Julia's grin was unapologetic. "You broke the internet, Elle. I mean, look at this, people are calling you a queen, a role model. Some are even saying you should start a podcast." Alina managed a weary laugh. "That's the last thing I need right now. I just want peace for me and for Emma." Her daughter, Emma, only 10, had slept through the storm, but would soon hear whispers at school. Elena's greatest fear wasn't Richard's rage or the media frenzy, it was protecting her child from the fallout. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, she found a man in a tailored suit holding a thick envelope. "Mrs. Sterling, you've been served." Her heart sank. She tore open the envelope and read through the legal jargon. Richard was filing for divorce on grounds of public humiliation. Worse, he was petitioning for full custody of Emma, claiming Alina was unstable and unfit as a mother. Her hands trembled. He wouldn't, he couldn't, but Richard could, and he would. The weeks that followed were brutal. Richard launched a smear campaign, feeding tabloid stories about Elena's irrational behavior and emotional instability. Veronica appeared in carefully staged interviews, painting herself as misunderstood, insisting she and Richard were soulmates who had found each other after his marriage had already fallen apart. Alina wanted to scream at the lies, but her lawyer, a sharp woman named Dana, urged restraint. "The best weapon you have is your truth. Don't let him bait you into looking reckless. Judges see through that." Still, the custody battle loomed over her like a thundercloud. Emma clung to her more than ever, asking, "Mommy, am I going to have to live with Daddy and her?" Elena promised, with every ounce of conviction that she would never let that happen. One evening, while tucking Emma into bed, Elena's resolve hardened. She thought of the years she had sacrificed, nights alone, while Richard traveled with Veronica under the guise of work. Her silence when she suspected the truth but wasn't ready to face it. She would not lose her daughter to the man who had betrayed them both. "This isn't the end," she whispered to herself. "This is the fight of my life." Court hearings began. Richard arrived each time with Veronica on his arm, perfectly styled. Their lawyers spinning narratives about Elena's vindictive public outburst. Elena, however, appeared calm, dignified, supported by Julia and her attorney. When the judge asked why she had chosen to expose Richard so publicly, Elena answered honestly, "Because I was tired of being silenced. Because a man who lies to his wife, his family, and the world should not be celebrated without consequence. I did it for me, but also for my daughter, so she will know that truth matters more than appearances." The courtroom murmured with approval, and even the judge's stern expression softened. The turning point came when Dana presented evidence: hotel receipts, flight itineraries, and leaked emails that proved Richard had used company funds to finance his trips with Veronica. Not only was he a cheater, he was also guilty of misusing corporate resources. The investors who had once applauded him now distanced themselves. Terrified of scandal and legal fallout, Richard's empire crumbled, piece by piece, and so did his composure. During a recess, he cornered Elena in the hallway, his face twisted with fury. "Do you think you've won? You've ruined everything, Elena. Everything I built." She looked him in the eye, her voice steady. "No, Richard, you ruined it yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the truth." Months later, the verdict came down. The court granted Elena full custody of Emma, citing Richard's instability and reckless judgment. Richard was ordered to pay significant alimony and child support. Though his dwindling fortune made it clear he would struggle, Elena sat in the courtroom, relief flooding her. When Emma ran into her arms, whispering, "We get to stay together, Mommy," she knew every battle had been worth it. Veronica, once radiant, now looked worn. Rumors swirled that she had left Richard once his money dried up, moving on to her next conquest. Richard himself faded from headlines, a cautionary tale of arrogance and betrayal. Elena, however, found herself at the center of a different narrative. Invitations poured in for interviews. Women's organizations wanted her to speak, and people online praised her courage. But Elena chose a quieter path. She returned to painting, a passion she had abandoned during her marriage, and opened a small gallery. With Julia's encouragement, she even started selling her work, discovering joy in independence she hadn't felt in years. One evening, as she and Emma painted side by side in the gallery's back room, Emma asked softly, "Mommy, are you happy now?" Lena paused, looking at her daughter, the child who had given her strength when she thought she had none. She smiled through tears. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm happy because we're free, and because we have each other." The night Alina walked into that ballroom, she thought she was walking into war. In truth, she was walking into her rebirth. The betrayal had nearly broken her, but from the ashes of Richard's empire, Alina built something stronger, a life of honesty, dignity, and love. She had exposed not only her husband's mistress, but the illusion she had lived under for years. And in doing so, she uncovered her own power. For Alina, the story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival, about standing up when the world expected her to crumble, about teaching her daughter that betrayal can wound, but it cannot define you. And as the years passed, Lena Sterling's name was no longer whispered in scandal, but spoken with respect. A woman who crashed her husband's celebration, yes, but more importantly, a woman who reclaimed her own.